is one of my favorite United States senators, and not just because he hails from my home state of Missouri, but because he's genuinely one of the most rock-solid, rock-ribbed conservative senators that I know we can count on when all is said and done. He's Eric Schmitt, and we're so thrilled to have him this morning on what has been a very, very busy few weeks. It's always busy, I guess, in the Trump era. Glad to have you, Senator. Good morning.
It's good to be with you again, Chris. How are you?
I'm doing great, and I know you've got a lot of important stuff going on in the Senate right now. I want to try to get to all of it in a short amount of time. Let's start with some of the things coming across the desk, specifically on the Senate Judiciary Committee, of which you're a member. I was really intrigued yesterday. I was telling this audience about something Chuck Grassley and Kash Patel have exchanged about communist China monkeying around in the 2020 elections. Election integrity is something I know you care deeply about, this audience cares deeply about. Falsifying IDs for Americans and thus maybe falsifying votes in 2020, is that maybe what we're onto here?
I mean, we'll see. It's obviously a shocking revelation that we're definitely going to want to know more about, that was given to Chairman Grassley, and I'm sure that's not the last we're going to hear of it. And of course, in 2020, I think did more to sour people's belief in election integrity than any election in my lifetime. I mean, you had not only the media and big tech colluding to hide the Hunter Biden laptop story, which is now, of course, in the Missouri versus Biden lawsuit that I filed when I was Attorney General, we took the deposition of Elvis Chan, who was the FBI agent, pre-bunking the story. And letting them know this was going to be some Russian hack and leak operation. They knew their laptop was real. And of course, all that stuff comes out after the election. And then you had, which was the nature of some litigation I was involved with too, you had a lot of states. You had Mark Elias and his liberal cronies suing every state in the union trying to upend their election laws under the guise of COVID. But really what they wanted to do was make mass mail-in balloting a lot easier and less secure. And they were successful in a couple states of changing their election laws. In Georgia, entered into a settlement agreement. Pennsylvania, actually, the Supreme Court changed the law. Anyway, so there was a lot of shenanigans going on in 2020, no doubt. But this revelation certainly could be a blockbuster, and I suppose there's going to be more to come.
And I know maybe it's a cliche now, but Trump losing 2020 actually wound up biting the left hard. I mean, if in fact they really did rig that election, and I have every reason to believe that there was certainly unconstitutional behavior, if not outright rigging, I think they rue the day, given where we sit today.
Well, it's interesting you say that. I actually, when I played golf with President Trump in January, I had this conversation with him that in some ways, having a non-consecutive term is better for him. It was outside of the COVID window. He was able to the American people saw what the left would actually do if they had the reins of power for the 4 years of Joe Biden or whoever was actually running the White House at the time, the lefties writing the white papers who were pressing go on the auto pen, whoever it was. They saw the excesses of big government. They saw all of that in clear view, and the American people rejected it. President Trump had time, I think, to sort of really put together a team he wanted to have. You had really true America First folks. You didn't have some of the more establishment types that had populated the first term in some ways. And so I think that in a lot of ways, to your point, President Trump, 47, has the benefit of hindsight, and you see all this agenda that's moving forward now is, I think, a part of that. And I really do believe you put all those pieces together, whether it's rebalancing trade, a different view on foreign policy, the ability through reconciliation that we're going through right now in the Senate to make real change, lasting change. This is going to be the golden age of America, and President Trump was able to usher it in, I think, with a lot of the benefit of some of that hindsight.
Missouri Senator Eric Schmitt with us. You mentioned the auto pen. I know you're specifically looking into that. I think some people kind of want to shrug it off and say, a guy with a lack of cognitive function, he's an old guy. My granddad's kind of an old guy. He's slipping. What's the big... I see that, and I know you share. That is a major American scandal. It's not just a one-off shoulder shrug, is it? Which is why I think you're taking it very seriously, the auto pen business.
I think it's perhaps maybe the biggest scandal that was never recognized in American history. Bigger than Watergate. I mean, you had literally the President of the United States would get lost in a bathroom. And this guy was like totally incompetent, and everybody kind of knew it. They shielded him from a lot of people, but when he had that debate, then of course it was on full display, and the Democrats had nowhere to hide. What the truth is, they were willing to do just about anything to hold on to power, including prop up, in a Weekend at Bernie's like term, a guy who didn't know where he was in order to maintain the power that they had accumulated and exercised in ways that the American people had never seen before. They were basically making the argument, Chris, that this guy could be around for another 4 years. It wasn't just that he was competent at the time. It's that he could actually be president for another 4 years. That is a huge lie. It's a huge scandal. And this committee hearing that we're having, on Wednesday today, is not really backwards looking. It's really forward looking. Like, we got to make sure this never happens again. I was the first senator to call for the invocation of the 25th Amendment about a year ago. The Democrats were still making excuses. They never did it. The cabinet never did. But the 25th Amendment was put in place for situations like that. And there was just no courage, certainly among Democrats. And then, of course, their liberal media allies who were desperate just to make sure President Trump never returned to office. They were willing to go along with this lie as well. So I think it deserves the kind of investigation, exploration that we're going to give with the committee hearing tomorrow and certainly beyond that.
There's so much going on, so we'll monitor that and hope we can have you back after you found some new details in that hearing. May I ask you about the status of the big, beautiful bill? As I read it, at least as of yesterday, it sounds like the SALT deduction stuff is being changed a bit. Understandably, a lot of conservatives not thrilled about it from non-blue states. I get it. Medicare, rather Medicaid, I should say, some changes there. The fraud, I think, is being dealt with. Do you guys think you're going to make this a more conservative bill when it's all said and done, more so than the House?
I do. I think there's a real desire, including from me personally, to find more spending reforms in this. And I guess the way to look at this, there's a couple. So the reconciliation bill deals with mandatory spending. The normal appropriations process deals with discretionary spending. So there's two, and then you've got the rescissions package, which is kind of claws back wasteful spending. And we can talk more about that some other time, but I'm handling the rescission package in the Senate probably sometime in the month of July. So think of that as sort of three legs to a stool here. But the big one, the big beautiful bill, is the mandatory spending side. And so that is where you're going to have a lot of the extension of the tax cuts you saw in 2017. If we don't do that, Chris, it's a $4 trillion tax increase that would hit middle class and working families the hardest. So we got to get that done. But it's got a lot of president's priorities. It sort of front loads funding for the border, so we don't have to negotiate with the Democrats because we only need 51 votes in the Senate. So all the detention beds, additional ICE agents to go fulfill the promise of meeting mass migration with mass deportations, that's here. The no tax on tips, the no tax on overtime, that's here. But then you get into some of the other issues. I mean, quite frankly, the House negotiated something of $40,000 state and local tax deduction. So basically, they can deduct the high taxes in these blue states. I just don't. I think it's ridiculous that we would be subsidizing J.B. Pritzker and Gavin Newsom's stupid decisions. And that's the kind of nobody in the Senate. And now I understand the practical issues that there are 5 people in the House that this is their big thing, but it's a bicameral process, and the Senate's going to have their say on this. But having said that, Chris, I do think we're going to get there. But this is sort of the point in the process of the legislative sausage making that can get, you're going to have a clash of ideas. But I think ultimately we want to deliver for President Trump, and we want to deliver for the American people.
Senator Schmitt, could I ask you about Rand Paul, who you know well, is cantankerous on the issue of debt ceilings? I know you are too. Is it possible what he asks, let's not raise the debt ceiling and I'll support this big, beautiful bill? Is that even a possibility in your view?
It's not, and I've never supported a debt ceiling increase because there was never a plan. The reason why I'm willing to go there here is because there actually is a plan, and we've got President Trump in office and a House and a Senate Republican, conference that can actually start to bend this thing the other way. The challenge with what Rand is talking about is it does make sense to have the debt ceiling in this bill because you're only dealing with Republicans. You only need 51 votes. If you pull the debt ceiling out of this, then you're dealing with Democrats and need 60 votes to raise the debt ceiling. The cost will be way higher with what the Democrats yes, which will be a massive increase in spending. And so the more practical issue here is, if we've got to deal with the debt ceiling issue, we ought to deal with it here, where we're dealing with Republicans who are going to be much more conservative on the issue. That's my perspective.
Final, and I hate to cram this into a short answer, but Israel, Iran.
Yeah.
You know that there are a lot of conservatives who seem to be concerned we're being, quote, dragged into a war. I don't know how you view this. So far, I'm not convinced that Donald Trump has committed a single troop to any kind of combat. I don't see it that way, that we're committing our troops to war. We are involved to a degree. We're interested parties for sure. How do you see what Trump is doing right now in Iran?
I trust President Trump. I think he's ushered in a new era of viewing foreign policy and any engagement under the lens of what is in the core national interest of the United States of America. The United States of America. And Israel is engaged in this unilateral action, and they view, and it's their right, to take action if they view the existential threat of Iran, who, by the way, through its proxies, started all of this with October 7th. I think in many ways Iran is weaker than they've been in generations maybe now, because they've taken out the Hezbollah, they've taken out Hamas. The Houthis are still kind of a nagging problem, but I think one of the reasons why President Trump went to Saudi Arabia and had such a successful trip there was Saudi Arabia can be more engaged with the Houthis. They were before, until Joe Biden lifted the terrorist designation on them. And so I think you're going to see more cooperation. I think that really how this all started was Iran was terrified that you'd see a normalization of relations between Saudi Arabia and Israel, and that you might have more Arab countries coming into the Abraham Accords, which was a great achievement by President Trump. And so they then sort of greenlit the October 7th massacre. So what Israel's doing is they're taking on their chief adversary, and I think President Trump is watching this, and I trust he'll make good decisions here.
For full shows, live and on demand, it's Salem News Channel.
It's Chris Stigall, and you're watching the Answer Now TV.